In this lesson, we're going to duplicate the fingers and the thumb. Alright, so in the last lesson we created one finger, and now what we want to do is we want to come in and create the rest of those. So I'm just going to take this one with our move tool activated, and I'm going to hold down shift and drag that out in the Y. So I'm going to give that a little bit of space, and then I'm going to make 3 copies. Let's hit OK. So now we've got all 4 fingers. Now in the hand, if you want to take a look at the left view, hitting L on the keyboard, you can see the arm that we have here. We didn't really use this, we just kind of modeled it in without that reference. But if you wanted to do the arm that way, you could do so. You could also be helpful with the hand, just to kind of see the spread of the fingers, and then also see the ultimate height of those fingers, so that might be helpful too. Looking at these fingers though, I'm going to just kind of show you in a kind of an organic way without really following along with the reference. The middle finger is the longest. The way that we want to model this is we want to take a look at our fingers spread apart. We don't want to look at how our fingers look together completely. That could give you a little bit of indication on what the size of the fingers should be side by side like this. But normally we want to keep our fingers spread apart as we're going to position the fingers that way anyway, because it looks a little more natural. So with our index finger, it's going to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to grab my scale tool, and I'm going to scale this straight down in all 3 directions. And I'm just going to scale that just a little bit. So if I go to my left view, we can see how that looks. Now the top of your index finger should be just above or even with the nail here on your finger. Okay, now this is pretty good as the nails are a little bit longer on this stylized character, so that does look proportional. Looking at this one, if you look at the top of the finger, it's going to be about halfway between the nail and the middle finger, so we're going to scale that down. Okay, and then your pinky, the pinky has some odd proportions depending on the person. I believe everyone is different on this one. The pinky could be even with that knuckle on the ring finger, and it might be even a little bit above. And I've also seen some proportions to where it's even a little bit below that knuckle. So the pinky tends to do it at once. But most of the time I find it to be a little safe if you make it even with that knuckle or a little bit above that. Okay, so looking at this, I'm pretty happy with those proportions. So if you want, you can put all those together and just kind of look at that, see how that's looking in 3D. And that's a pretty good value. So we're looking good. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to get the overall positioning of the fingers. Keeping the fingers straight like this is not natural. That is not a relaxed state. If you take your hand and you just look at it totally relaxed, you'll notice that the knuckles will actually curve together. Now, if you straighten your hand out, notice that you're flexing a lot of muscles in the hand to get your knuckles straight across with one another. So this is in an unnatural state. So what we'll do is we'll take the index finger and we'll pull that forward a little bit. We're going to take the middle finger and pull that even further. Okay, and then the index finger we'll pull forward just a little bit. Okay, so you should have kind of this curved shape going across to there. If it helps, you can go to your top view and really see exactly how that looks. So it's mostly flat. We have pretty much the same angle from here to here, but then it drops off at that index finger. Okay, so your ring finger and your index finger should be fairly close together. I'm going to bring that forward just a little bit. Okay, so now the next thing that we need to look at is the overall orientation of the fingers. Now with this, we could come in and we could rotate the fingers to get them offset properly. And that would be correct with this. But more importantly, offsetting your fingers like this really helps with connecting the fingers later on. So we need to make sure that we have these rotated enough to where these polygons can go together. Okay, and it does create a little bit more of a natural state. So the index finger is going to be rotated just a little bit, or the ring finger is going to be rotated just a little bit. We'll leave the middle finger alone, and then we'll rotate the index finger the opposite direction. So it kind of creates that C shape again with just the orientation of the fingers. And let me rotate that one more time. So we look good here. Everything's going to come together. Okay, so we have all the fingers oriented. We've got them positioned properly. And now what we want to do is we want to come in and start connecting these together. Now before we start connecting those together, we need to get our thumb. Now the thumb, we can use the same geometry. The thumb is very different from the rest of the fingers. However, most of it is the same as far as the model goes. So we're going to hold down Shift, and we're going to drag out the index finger. We'll make that a copy, and then we're going to position this in the thumb. Now, the topology that we have here, it would be a mistake to assume that this is where it's going to join at the palm. If you take a look at your fingers, counting from the knuckle at the top of your palm, on the finger itself, you've got one knuckle here. This is the main knuckle that we tend to recognize, and then we have a knuckle here above the fingernail of that movement there. Okay, so with the thumb, it's a little bit different. On the thumb, you actually only have two, okay, that we can visually see. The one that's supposed to be up here is actually inside of the palm itself. It's actually very close to the wrist. So what I tend to do is I come in and I go to polygon mode with this object, and I'll get rid of these top polygons here. Let's turn off that toggle there, that window toggle. And I work with these vertices here. And then I'll go to edge or border mode, and I'll scale that out in all three directions. So it kind of flares out a little bit more with the thumb. All right. Let's take this. Let's grab our move tool, and let's put that into position. So let's go ahead and bring it up here. And then I'm going to grab my rotation tool, and I'm going to rotate that thumb around, and then I'm going to rotate it up just like so. Let's grab our local reference coordinate system. Let's put that back into position, and then we're going to rotate this out like so. So we should get this kind of look. Let's push that in a little bit closer there. And I'm looking at that reference image, and I think I may be a little off with that. I'm going to pull this thumb down, kind of center it up like so. Now at this point with the hands, like the reference image becomes more of a guideline. We get our initial positioning, and then we'll start filling everything in, and then we'll make our adjustments as we're modeling. So now that we have all of the fingers duplicated, now what we need to do is we need to start getting all of those connected together and start creating the palm. Now in the next lesson, we're going to talk about some of the deforming loops that we need for the hand, as it is a very flexible organ of the body. So we'll start on that next.